Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be discussing my best friend guide for Puzzle & Dragons. So, in this guide you will learn basically how to find more friends, explain how the process works and how to optimize it, as well as helping improve your friends list by making a few changes to your leaders and how you display them, along with what you can use your PAL points on and why this is important to you. So the main issue is with the best friend reset that is coming up is that people want to use this new best friend token that they have. With this best friend token, you're able to choose someone as your best friend, and the best friend confers benefits to both players, and this does not remove or erase pre-existing best friends. This is basically an additional one you get to send out. So don't fear that you're going to lose your older ones because of this. So even though that co-op and multiplayer does exist, it still can be advantageous to have best friends, because if you co-op with that person, for instance, you will actually gain more PAL points still. So there is still value in it, along with the possibility that you are going to play solo mode for the various challenges or for convenience, so on and so forth. So, for finding friends, well, in order to get started, we need to find friends, because, like, how else are we going to do it otherwise? So, there are many different ways you can acquire friends, but to start with, you actually have 50 friends as you rank up, and it will cap out there after a certain period of time. Afterwards, you can spend 1 magic stone to add 5 up to a maximum of 300 friends. Now, the idea is that you want to try and get your friends list as big as possible sooner rather than later, because you can kind of view it as like a time cost scenario, because the sooner you have more friends in your friends list, the sooner you'll be gaining more PAL points. And this is a passive benefit that will happen every single day. So if you were to have 300 friends right now, as opposed to your, say, 100, you'd be gaining far more PAL points, most likely. And that's going to happen every day. It'll pay for itself. And to be fair, most people tend to get 300 friends if they've been playing for long enough. Now, in order to find more friends, there are several ways you can go about this. You can post your ID on the various forums, the Reddit threads, or the Facebook groups of like Global, the US, and the Help group. If you look at my article, which should be in the YouTube description down below, you can click these links. It'll take you to all those various places. In addition, you can basically search for players' IDs, and you go to Friends and then ID search, and then you just simply type in their ID code, as well as displaying your own at the same time. And finally, you can just find users from your friends list when you're selecting to go into a dungeon in solo mode, because they'll show up as like user, and you can just, if you like them, you can use them, complete the dungeon, and send a friend request. So if you're a newer player and you're just starting out, you want to try and get as many people on your friends list as possible, because in all honesty, a lot of those players are going to disappear, because when you're a newer or lower rank account, it's more likely that people are quitting earlier because they just don't either like enjoy the game or not as invested in it, as well as re-rolling or restarting. So a lot of players tend to like quit or stop in the first, like, say 50 to 100 ranks. So you got to be vigilant and keep your friends list very clean, like delete inactive players on a regular basis, so on and so forth, and try and find people who are kind of ranking up at the same pace as you, if that makes sense. So this even still applies when you are using like your own account and you've been playing for a long time. For instance, I like to try and clean up my friends list on a regular basis to make room for players who are active. So, when advertising yourself to the various communities or Facebook groups, so on and so forth, you want to try and display your ID in the most efficient way possible. And to do this, it's best to create a team slot and put your ID as the team name, because you can have 10 characters and your ID is 9, as well as displaying your most popular leader that you will display from left to right. So in this case here, this account here is using Miru Most, then Sarasvati, Awoken UNY, and Awoken DQXQ. The point being is you only show a few leaders, because you're probably only going to be using a few at a time. And if you show 10 at once or more, like just posting your whole box, you're going to make people think, oh, well, they're not consistent. I'm not going to see the leader I want that often, so I'd rather not best friend you. Like, showing off like all your monsters doesn't help you in this case. It's better to condense your image to something simple like this. Doing this is most efficient in my opinion, and that's what you should try and do when advertising. It's one clean image, people can see easily what you use from left to right. So the keys to success and gaining more best friends is you want to try and follow these various tips as closely as possible. So ideally you want to run a popular leader. For instance, right now, Miru is possibly one of the most popular leaders right now because it's farmable and very powerful. Using a popular leader will get you more friends because more people will use you, so on and so forth. Account activity. Now this refers to logging in. Like, some players don't necessarily log in all the time. They have either other commitments or issues finding Wi-Fi, data, so on and so forth. But at the very minimum, you should log in at least every day for the daily benefit and to refresh on your friends list your last activity time. Because if you're showing that you've last played, say, 5 days ago, it doesn't look as good, but you could have technically not played in 5 days, but logged in every day, and all people see is that you've actually just logged in like less than a day ago. So just at least log in and get the daily benefits. Play a dungeon or two if you're at it, but the point being is log in every day. In addition, you want to have consistent leader display. And this means that you want to try and showcase the same leaders all the time. If you have consistency, people are more likely to best friend you because they realize, oh, this person is always running, say, Miru, for instance. They're going to be great. I want to use them. Or if you always show Kaede, it's like, oh, this person has Kaede. I want to use Kaede. If you're showing it all the time, you're more likely to get a best friend and a more loyal friends list. In addition, you want to have invested leaders. Because all your friends list sees that are your leaders, you want to have them being as invested in as possible. That means you want to try and get them obviously max level, 297, max skilled, relevant latent, and an intelligent or rare inherit. And by that, I mean you want to find an inherit that is going to be beneficial to most people, universally speaking. So this is an example I like to use for myself, is that if you use Miru and you have, say, Wedding Akachi at your disposal, put the Wedding Akachi on your Miru, because very few people have Wedding Akachi, and Wedding Akachi is one of the greatest assets for a Miru team because you get the beautiful 2/3 Light Enhance, 1/3 Heart, or Burst board. And that means you'll probably get far more friends and a lot more requests if you have something unusual like that. In addition, say you're running someone like Halloween Xiangmei, you may want to have someone who has either like the Batman or the Ishida, the guys who make basically hearts, wood, and dark orbs as a board changer, because that's kind of rare by comparison. So you want to try and find something that's rarer and very helpful. Obviously you want to do something that's beneficial to yourself, but if possible and have a choice, put the rarer thing or more universally helpful thing on your leader. And this is maybe a bit older now because a lot of people farm in co-op, but if you're playing solo mode and you'd like people with solo mode, try and find people who have like a farming leader, so it's quick and mindless, and a descend leader. For instance, you're not going to use Awoken DQXQ to farm trivial content, so it's rather better to have something that's easy and more consistent. Say I had like an Awoken Shiva, I could have Awoken Shiva up, allows people to use them for easy, mindless dungeons. And you should always try your best to avoid duplicate leaders display, because the way it works is that your team slot 1, your team slot 1 displays to all your friends, your team slot 2 only displays to best friends, and your active team slot displays to all your friends as well. So if you have duplicate leaders in those slots, you're only going to be showcasing what you have to fewer players, and that means you're less likely to get picked because they just see, oh, they're only showing Sarasvati in all 3 slots. Do they run anything else? I might want something else, so on and so forth. So like I said here, slot 2 is for best friends, and light Metatron. You funny. So now that you've passed rank 50, you're actually able to make a best friend selection. If you already made one in the past and the reset comes along, you get to choose an additional one, so you don't lose any benefits that you had from beforehand. And a best friend selection is a relatively large commitment in terms of pad standards, because it's, for one, non-consensual. It just happens. Like, if Bob really wants to best friend Sally, you are becoming best friends with Sally, and Sally has no say in the matter. She's probably happy, to be honest, but it's going to happen no matter what. Like, once you choose it, it's also something you can't undo. If you say break your friendship and delete them off your friends list, you re-add them, you don't actually get the best friend again. They're just a regular friend, and someone has to best friend again. So make sure you best friend someone who is actively playing the game. Like, don't best friend someone who's going to disappear or someone you don't use, so on and so forth. So what are the benefits of being a best friend? So when you choose a best friend, they will grant you 100 instead of 10 PAL points every time you use them on a daily basis. So they're basically 10 times more valuable from a PAL point generation perspective. In addition, their leaders will be displayed for 24 hours since their last login. So that means if you're a low-ranking player and you best friend someone that's higher ranking, you can always piggyback off their super strong leader. They will never disappear. They'll never have to refresh their game. You will never have to refresh your game to see their leader again. So that could be the most valuable, because say you need someone who has more of a niche leader and you know they run them all the time, you best friend them, you have access to them all the time, they never disappear, provided they log on at least once every day. Now, it's like that is pretty powerful on all. And once you start getting more and more best friends, your PAL points start rolling in. So like I said, you want to try and have your leaders displayed that kind of follow this guideline here. So if you're a newer account, I strongly, strongly recommend you actually best friend someone who's a higher rank, because they will have stronger leaders than you, leaders that can carry you through the early game if you're playing solo mode, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier because you don't have to worry about them disappearing or refreshing, because if the rank disparity is very large, those friends are not displayed for a very long period of time. So it's actually better to best friend someone who's higher rank, especially if you just started out. Some people argue that a best friend triangle gives you more, but it's not really worthwhile by comparison. And I basically am just including a few screenshots of people who have like some communication I've done with some of my friends, because it is good to ask before you best friend. Like, for instance, this Funky Fresh person who's actually my oldest friend on Puzzle and Dragons, like excluding myself, he's my oldest friend. Like he still asked, like, would it be alright if I add you as my best friend in case I suddenly were to quit, so on and so forth. F. Curry thinks I'm a great person and wants to make sure he adds me, so on and so forth. And Wars likes the two leaders, and that's when Kieran or Sakuya and Light Metatron were actually useful. Huh. So, now, next comes best friend triangles. So, a best friend triangle is essentially a process in which 3 people band together and send their best friend token out to someone else in a triangle formation. That way, you actually gain 2 best friends for only 1 token. So the way it works is player A best friends B, B best friends C, and C best friends A. That way, A actually has best friends of B and C, and everyone else basically has 2. So you basically gained an extra best friend through this process. So it's actually quite a powerful way to gain more best friends. Obviously, you want to find a triangle that has players that use similar leaders to you, has synergy, so on and so forth. And make sure you coordinate either through Facebook or even the pad messaging system. So for instance here, we've all agreed that this person with a funny face is going to best friend Paz, Paz best friends myself, and I best friend Funny Face. So now that we have all these PAL points, what do we spend them on? So you should never roll the palling machine unless there's a favorable event that's occurring right now. We are currently able to store up to 25,000 or 50 rolls worth of PAL points, so don't pull outside of your desired event unless you're about to cap out and you're going to waste them. So in general, there have been 3 main events that occur. There's the Enhanced Carnival, which provides monster experience for leveling up your monsters. There's the Evolution Material Carnival, in which you gain various evolution materials that help you evolve your cards. And finally, it's the Skill Up Carnival, and that's just kind of useless. Or is it Rare Monster Carnival? Either way, it's pretty garbage in most cases. It's really good to just wait for the Enhanced and Evolution materials. And one thing to note is that since you can pool up to 25,000, you don't always have to roll as soon as they come in. You can wait and hoard them up and pull 10 at a time when desirable. In addition, you can actually clear various challenges and you can get PAL points in your mail. And PAL points in your mailbox can sit there for a year's time and they won't contribute towards capping out. So let's say you clear one of the challenges and you get this in your mailbox. You can just save it there, and then you can simply redeem it when there's a desirable carnival. Basically, you get a message something like this, and you get, say, like 2,000 PAL points. So right away, I just got 4 more rolls. Pretty awesome. So what carnival you should roll in really honestly depends on what you can benefit from the most. If you're just starting out, the Enhanced Carnival will probably be the most beneficial because you can level all your cards to level 50, and then you'll probably switch to the Evolution Materials Carnival because that way you can evolve those cards. After that point in time, it all depends on personal preference what you need more. But I like to point out that if you roll the Evolution Carnival and you get, say, a Golden Keeper, you actually just saved yourself 25 stamina in co-op or 50 stamina in solo mode, because those cards don't drop in regular dungeons, whereas at least Enhanced Materials can drop playing Rogue Descends in multiplayer. But then again, use your PAL points where you think it's best, but just be aware of what carnival is occurring. So, in conclusion, best friends are basically just a valuable way in Puzzle and Dragons to gain access to new leaders, get more PAL points, and just improve your overall levels of happiness. And if you want, you can watch this Queen, well, you can listen to the Queen song, You're My Best Friend, because, you know, it has such good synergy with this topic. And finally, this is kind of outside the best friend guide. If you are wanting to best friend either my Mantastic or Fantastic account, please leave a comment below on my website with your ID and in-game name so I can make sure I accept the correct person, because I'm usually sitting at 300 friends and quite often maximum number of invites, because there is actually a limit to how many invites you can have even if you're full friends list. And for those who use Miru on a regular basis, I actually have Saria inherited onto Mantastics, and Wedding Akachi onto Fantastics. So they are my 2 accounts. There's also my social media in case you want to reach me or contact or follow me on various different platforms. So thank you everyone for watching this guide. There will be a link in the description below to this article, so you can click on the various links. Have a Mantastic day and happy puzzling!